What is so sacred about the 40-hour work week? Could we work less? In fact, the most famous economist of the 20th century predicted we would have a 15-hour work week by now. Why did he get it so wrong? The economist in question is John Maynard Keynes. Keynes wasn't just a brilliant economist, he was a celebrity, admired by actors, respected by philosophers, loved by ballerinas. Keynes was more James Bond than Treasury Bond. Does that joke work? Okay, anyways, whatever. Keeping it. In 1930, he made some predictions.
I predict that the future will be abundant. Workers will only toil 15 hours a week. And finally, that people will say I'm more James Bond than Treasury Bond.
15 hours a week may seem very wrong. But what if Keynes was mostly correct? Let's dive in. First, he was right about technological progress and productivity. The average farmer could feed about 10 people in 1930. Today, it's 166. In 1920, it took a worker about 15 minutes to earn enough to light this room for an hour. Today, it takes this long. So, if we are so much more productive, why do we still work 40 hours? Well, as we got richer, we invented more stuff. Hawaiian vacations, iPhones, social media to put on iPhones to show off Hawaiian vacations. New inventions that began as luxuries became modern necessities. I mean, a year ago, my wife didn't know what Dubai chocolate was. Now it's a central part of her identity. But you don't actually need any of this stuff. You could live like a 1930s person if you wanted to. It would mean eating bland food, having just a few outfits. Your house would be 900 square feet and probably wouldn't have indoor plumbing or a car. Compare all that to today. So the standard of living was much lower in 1930. In 1 week, a worker made the equivalent of 520 of today's dollars. Now, get this. Here's where it gets interesting. Do you want to guess how long it would take the average worker today to earn $520? Almost exactly what Keynes predicted. 14 hours. So you could actually work 14 hours a week, you just have to live like it was the 1930s, which would be very unpleasant, unless you love stew and hate toilets. But on the plus side, you would have a lot of free time for all your fun 1930s hobbies, like listening to the radio, playing board games, carving soap. So, yeah, no one wants the 1930s lifestyle. We want all the modern stuff. We want the new video games, the latest Lego sets, and then we want to watch people complain about those things. Now, whether we actually enjoy all this stuff or we're just trapped in a massive status game by our tech overlords is outside the scope of this video, and more fodder for a philosophy essay that can now be written by our aforementioned tech overlords. My point is Keynes got everything mostly right. We're richer. We could afford the standard of living of his day at 15 hours a week. He just didn't understand humanity's desire for more and more. But maybe I'm being too cynical. There's another way to look at this. Here's a paper by Nicholas Crafts. In it, he takes a longer view of Keynes' prediction. He asks, what % of your life will you work? See, we have one more thing they didn't have in the 1930s, retirement. Back then, most people worked their entire life, and life was shorter. Life expectancy was less than 60. Even the almighty Keynes only made it to 62, dying of a condition that would be easily managed today. And while we don't work 15 hours a week, we work less per week than they did in the 1930s. So we spend many years not working, and per year we work less than they did. That means there's a huge difference in the % of your life worked. Crafts estimates that in 1930, a 20-year-old man would spend 40% of the rest of his life working, while today it's about 20%. That's a 50% decrease. This isn't quite the 60% decrease in weekly hours worked predicted by Keynes, but it's close. So while we don't have a 15-hour work week, we have things Keynes, with all his intelligence, couldn't begin to imagine. If you'd like to look at these topics in more depth, head on over to our Substack. Or you can watch more from the Econ Nerds.